All right. So it is January 6th, 2021, right? That's the date. That's today's date. On this date, we have just witnessed a coup being attempted, demonstrated, occurred on our United States Capitol. Pretty much a bunch of individuals who are showcasing. They indicate that they're pro-Trump, indicating that they're far right. Take the actions needed to step onto the property of the U.S. Capitol and essentially just walk right in. In that event, folks who were legislators, a part of Congress, sitting within that space, feared for their lives. Individuals were barricaded and fleeing for safety as individuals were busting down windows, taking things, and essentially inserting themselves into this location because of this sense of entitlement or feeling like that wrongfully, because of the actions of the election, helped them to feel like they're wrongfully or situation, whatever, what have you. A woman died today because she was shot in the chest. I think I saw something about 15 people being arrested. Pictures are flying left and right of essentially something that looks out of a movie. I saw a tweet of somebody saying it looks like something out of The Dark Knight Rises. It's tiring. I mean, this is like this date, this today is coming after the event of the state of Wisconsin not indicting the police officer who shot James Blake in the back 7 times, citing for self-defense. That's what the police officer said. Homeboy's paralyzed for life. Kids are traumatized by that situation. Today, however, what's going on? What is really happening here? And the surprising nature of it is sad, but it's not, I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, as you see, if you scroll on any social media platform, you will see the same sentiment. Black folks ain't surprised. This has been conjured up for the last 4 to 5 years, and more particularly within the last couple of months, based upon the rhetoric that was utilized by the leader of our nation, the rhetoric utilized to incite wrongful doing, wrongful actions being done based upon an election that in a system and the way in which we activate our societal systems, governmental systems, not falling in line with this one particular individual. What strikes me as what pains me is that this is something that's been continuing, especially since the other ways to demonstrate your distaste or demonstrate your disagreements were seen as distasteful, were seen as the wrong way of doing it. Taking a knee is wrong. Doing a sit-in is wrong. Looting is wrong. Okay. Fit into the square peg to figure out exactly how in which we express our voices to the things that we are oppressed by. Black folks dying in the streets, as an example. But yet today was an okay thing to do. And I've seen a lot of folks who are saying, we don't condone the violence that's occurring on this day. But okay, but what about the reason why this violence occurred? Are we good with that? Are we good with the rhetoric that's been utilized to incite this type of action and this rage or this feeling to waltz into a space thinking it is yours and take things without any repercussions? Are we okay with that? Similar to the vibe and the feeling of being okay with, we look at the looting and the rioting that's occurred in in Missouri and LA and Portland, things of that nature. And I know there's a lot of the topical viewpoint of these events, seeing them as we're not okay with the violence, we're not okay with the rioting, we're not okay with the actions that are occurring by the people on the day. Cool. Why is that happening? Well, folks who are protesting or who have been protesting in these said areas prior to today was more so frustrated that Black lives were dying. Death was occurring in the streets, and nobody seemed to care or condemn it. Or at least the voices that we wanted to say that weren't showcasing that. And even the allyship that were showing that Black lives mattered, that Black lives have value in this earth, that people's lives have value in this earth, may have done some performative actions to show that they're on that side. Now, I do recognize that sometimes the performative nature of activism does mean, hopefully, that they're on the right track. There's an acknowledgement that, hey, something is wrong here, and I want to be on the right side of this, the correct side of this. That shouldn't stop there. Continue to keep doing the work, dive deeper, actually do some systemic changes and policy changes, and allowing more voices to be included into that space so that what you're performing is true to your nature, true to the actions. That's that box. Back to today. Okay. Folks are looting and rioting at the Capitol. Don't condemn that. Don't condemn the violence that's happening. Okay. What's happening underneath that? Why are folks doing that? There is a sentiment that the presidential election was being taken away by Donald Trump, and the way in which the system has worked in order to put Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in place in the upcoming to be incumbent president and vice president respectively, required that the people cheated. Somebody cheated. So because somebody cheated, we need to talk about that people are cheated. We need to talk about the people who did quote unquote cheat as demeaning, demoralizing individuals that should be removed or drained from the swamp. Remember that rhetoric? And because of that, and now that we've seen the action and the result of that, it's time to rise up from your stand back and stay ready, stay back and stay ready order that was given, right? So what could we do to move away from the topical, the surface level situations that we see them, right? We acknowledge that they're there, but find a way to dive deeper to the root of what is it that got us to this point. And if we're able to do the analysis and dive deeper into the order and events in which that led us to this boiling situation, water over the pot, fire and brimstone, fire in the dumpster act that makes everybody uncomfortable. Like nobody wants to watch CNN or scroll through their social media and see this uncomfortable thing. I get it. But are we willing to do the analysis to dive deeper to understand what it is that got us to this point, and then map what went wrong, circle it 12 times, and have a conversation and say, how do we not do this anymore? Like, how do we see the turning point right here at step 7, section B. This language was utilized that then sparked this whole continuum that led us to this situation, right? How do we talk about that? How do we get to the point to where we can sit down and say, let's analyze and not do this again, and then create preventative measures to look at certain, looking at history and looking at certain situations and say, okay, hey, we're noticing a pattern. Whenever we get to this point, hell breaks loose. What's the safeguards and guardrails that we're going to do in order to not make sure not let it get to that point? Who is willing to? Oh, no. People are willing to step up and do that, but I feel like there's not many people willing to listen because it doesn't become real until it gets real. It doesn't become real to somebody who may not necessarily understand the ways in which in nature, or feel like the the power, the position that some folks currently sit in, excludes them from even engaging and entering into, or seeing the problem at hand, seeing getting to the root cause of it. Because I get it, I understand. Sometimes, you know, people would, I think about the Lorax. All right, I think about the Lorax. I got two young kids. We read the Lorax like 100 times at the beginning of quarantine. And I think about the Lorax, the homeboy in the Lorax, the man who the little thing who spoke to the trees, talked to the onceler and said, "Yo, the actions that you're doing is messing up the ecosystem." We get this beautiful land, we get this beautiful place, but yet your desire to build these needs that everybody needs, capitalism, environmentalists, all this kind of stuff, right? If you're trying to build these things out of these natural resources, thinking that this is what people need to continue your business and wealth, but yet your actions, the result that you're doing, is detriment to the environment and the people who live within it. And the homeboy was like, "Yo, I don't see that. You know what I'm saying? I'm making money. I'm doing my thing. I got my position. I'm making money. I. Until the last tree gets struck down, all the animals leave. The Lorax picks himself by his butt and flies into the open hole in the polluted sky, right? I wonder what would have happened if the onceler who stepped into this beautiful land and saw all these trees and was like, "Yo, these trees are dope. I can make some money off of these trees. Make a threed for everybody, what everybody needs, right? I can make one of these things." He chops one tree down. The Lorax comes through, and Lorax has said, "Yo, I speak for the trees. They don't like these these things. Look at the Barbaloot suits. Look at all these people. Look at what you're doing. If you do this, that will set off a chain reaction that will then eventually pollute the earth." If the onceler listened after the first tree cutting, how would that have changed the story? How would that have changed the trajectory of maybe the onceler? What could the onceler have done differently, right? Onceler could have done this. He could have been like, "Oh, my bad. I didn't realize this was your home. I didn't realize how much you truly valued these trees, what they do to you, what they do to the environment, what they do to the other beings. How about this? I won't cut down your trees. I get it. Do your thing. I'm going to keep going. All right?" Option number one. Option number two. "Yo, I'm sorry. I cut down your tree. I have this idea, I have this thing of creating these needs that everybody needs, but yet I recognize the impact that it does for you and your community. So what would it look like for us to partner together to advance this business opportunity while still supporting the community," right? Option number three. Option number two. Option number three is what the book continues, what Dr. Seuss was trying to illustrate, is what we just talked about. If we were to flip the script and look at what's going on in today's society, we look at this current situation, and we've gotten to the point now where the world is polluted. It's been polluted, but for the sake of the story, the world is polluted. Hell's breaking loose. Everybody's going crazy. People are storming the capitals. People are pissed off. Social media is going haywire. You get it, right? If we were to track this back to the beginning of the presidency, or slavery, biblical times, early times, whatever, but in the modern age, if we were to take the opportunity to look back into that time and say, "Hey, yo, we have these voices who are speaking up and saying these oppressive things that are being done by the people in power are hurting the oppressed, they're hurting the vulnerable, hurting the marginalized." Those people in power will have the ability to sit back and look and say, "Yo, I get it. I see that. I was not aware. Now that I know, my apologies. Let me move on," right? Let's do something different. Or, "I'm sorry. What can we do to make this a mutual collective engagement for both of us? What's your goals? What's my goals? How do we find common ground? Let's move forward." Or option three is what we see today, right? We just say, "Yeah, nah, it ain't no issue. You're just too sensitive," or "that doesn't happen to everybody," or "that's not a thing. My privilege, white privilege, your plight, your oppression is not real," until it gets real. I don't know. That's just I don't know. Finding an opportunity to get to the root cause is a key, is a good leadership quality trait that we need to be embodying collectively. Get to the root cause, get to common ground, find solutions that work better for everyone. Make sure voices are included, make sure the right people are in the room to have those voices included, and be able to step up and have the accountability to nip things in the bud when you notice it gets off the rails. But you have to have the ability to know the steps in which things will get crazy, and then have the boldness and authority to step in front of that, stop the line, and say, yo, we can't continue. Time out. We can't continue with this action. We need to change course, change directions, or else it's going to get worse. And there's people in line. There's people all over the place who are speaking these out, and people are definitely there in various positions, but people aren't listening, though. Voices is continuing not to be heard, though. So that's the quick rant for that piece. But then one thing I wanted to mention, two things actually. As I sat in today, right? Today was, another one of those rough days. Started a rough week. Seeing the action that was going on CNN, Twitter feeds, Instagram, Facebook, all those things. Again, traumatizing. It's hard to watch, but yet continue to watch because it's I don't know. It's the psychological thing, right? There is also some good stuff going on with people communicating out. Take care of yourself. So I'm gonna reiterate that. Take care of yourself. Drink some water. Go get some workout. Get offline. Take some deep breaths. What have you. Do those things. That needs to be done. But I thought about this. What would my kids say or think about this period, or even about me in this period? And that's not to say that I'm not all high and mighty and all that, but I've always processed, what is the next generation thinking about this time? What would they say? What would they think about us during this time? Because I know that happens. I mean, we do that. I do that all the time. I think about, things that happened in history. I'm like, yo, I would have done this differently. Like if I knew then what I know now, things would have been different. But I mean, that's the whole point of studying history, right? Studying our education is be able to recognize, again, the patterns in which these things occurred to get to this point, and then be able to have the wherewithal and the knowledge to stop doing that moving forward. And, it's up to us to be able to acknowledge that, to be aware of that, and do the actions necessary today, but then teach that and create space where that dialogue can occur, rather than just let it happen and be like, oh, whatever, it's my life, I'm gonna do my thing. So I think about my kids. I think about my children who are, they're way too young to know what's going on, but they do know my responsibility and my reactions. They do know how I like the sense I have to myself. And I can only imagine the next generation who may not necessarily have people to look up to, who are intentionally thinking about their character, their integrity, their actions, their words, and following and looking just anywhere online and just being like, yo, like I should respond because this is what I see as a response. So this should be mine too. But not really having a space where it's like, yo, like, no, like let's critically analyze exactly what's going on first before just reacting, because that's not okay either. So I'm often processing, what do my kids think? What would the next generation think? And what am I going to do about that? Like, how do I engage in that and intervene or help shape the course to say, yo, there's something different here that we could do based upon what we've learned and what we've seen. That piece. Last thing I'll mention. Two things I'll mention. One is our words, our characters, and our actions matter. If we haven't, if there's anything that we've learned in the last 6 to 7 years, what we say, what we do, and how we do it matters. The rhetoric in which, and the body language that we have, and how we associate with ourselves matter. And if we are unable to see why that is, based upon what we saw today, 10 days away from the inauguration of the next the next presidency, we have to be mindful of what we say and what we do, and where that derives from our hearts and from our values. So again, what we feed into ourselves, what we listen to, how we communicate about, our own self-talk, and even the people that we may not know necessarily connect with and agree with. what we say about any of that, what we do about that, and how we feel about that truly matters, because that now will shape just, again, those next steps, those thoughts, those feelings towards them, towards others, towards ourselves. If we have hate, we're going to give hate. If we have love, we're going to give love. So consider in which what you're feeding into your soul, what are you feeding into your mind, your heart, your spirit, and be sure that they are aligning truly with compassion and love more than hate and discrimination. Again, history would show that, right? But I get that it might be difficult, again, if you are not in a position or a place where that is constantly being fed to you. So there is some opportunities of self work that you got to do to put yourself in that environment. But then again, there are some people around us who we need to do our best to go engage with individuals who may not necessarily have that as a part of their environment to foster that environment. So if you don't have it, go seek it. If you have it, go seek it. Go find those places that's not there and then foster that, build those bridges, build those connections, because we need to be able to have the language in which that our community is thriving through love and compassion. We have to step into that space. Now, the last thing, what are we going to do? What are we going to do now? Do you get it? Do you see it? Do you acknowledge it? Is this real enough for you? What are you going to do? I think this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do, at least. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to keep engaging. I'm going to keep crafting the language in which that my heart needs, the posture that I need to have, shaping that with my children, but then also as a leader, shaping that with the folks that I lead at my job, the folks that I lead in the community, the environments that I'm a part of, the presence that I want to give out, being mindful of what I say and do, because of what I say and do matters. And depending on who is listening and watching can take that and see that as fuel to either do something right or do something wrong. And we have a responsibility in that. Nothing is disconnected from what, who we are is not disconnected from what we saw today. We are very much so connected to what's going on at the Capitol, what happened at the Capitol. We're very much connected to what happened 4 years ago with the inauguration. We're so connected to that. How we think, say, and do has a connection to that. But what we think, say, and do about that will shape the next generation, will shape our hearts, will shape how we build community or break down community. Oh shoot, where's my Bible? I read a verse today about the things that God detests, and it was in Proverbs 6, because I'm reading the proverb today, and in Proverbs 6, and one of the things talked about the shedding of innocent blood. Like, God detests that. God doesn't like to have innocent blood shed. I mean, he doesn't like violence in general. And so, let me look that up. And your boy said, yes, so the 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. 6 things that God detests. 7 of them he hates. Like, he just don't like those things. If we recognize the things that God hates, yet we live that out in our communities, what does that say about our hearts and minds? Sure, we are faulty human beings. Sure, we are not perfect, but there are actions and things that we could take to be intentional about building the community that we are in. And if we recognize that violence, looting, demeaning, hurting, talking about folks, having implicit bias, all the things are detriment to the building up and building safe communities and safe people in our communities, then we got some work to do to change that. We got some work to do. So who are you leaning with? Who are you leaning on? What are you feeding into your soul? Who are you leaning on to help shape that for you? Are we doing the work to find the root cause that is allowing that makes these things happen? Are we doing the steps it takes to stop that from occurring in the future? And are we bold enough to take action and hold each other accountable so that things don't go haywire the next time? What are you going to do? I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep engaging. I'm going to keep finding ways to shape the culture within my household and within the community. And I'm going to continue to share that we all have the capabilities to love and to serve in this way. So log off. I'm going to log off. I'm going to think about this more. I'm going to do some action, though. Take care of yourselves. And let's do better. Let's do better as a community. Let's condemn the things that we need to condemn, but let's build each other up in a way that continues to foster thriving, safe communities. Peace.